Picture this, a colossal ship, gleaming like a palace on water, slicing through the icy Atlantic night, hailed as the unsinkable marvel of its era. Passengers dined in opulent splendor, unaware of the hidden dangers lurking beneath the polished decks. Beneath the glittering lights and polished brass, secrets festered, secrets that would turn a majestic voyage into one of the most infamous maritime disasters in history. Imagine the fear, the chaos, the desperation as the nightmare began. The RMS Titanic, launched in 1912, was more than just a ship. It was a symbol of human ambition and pride. Built in Belfast, Ireland, she represented the pinnacle of luxury, engineering, and modernity, touted as unsinkable by her creators. Yet, behind the glamour lay flaws, ignored in the race for prestige. Insufficient lifeboats, overlooked safety measures, and a relentless drive for speed. Over 2,200 people boarded her maiden voyage, ranging from wealthy industrialists and aristocrats to immigrant families chasing dreams of a new life in America. Beneath the sparkling chandeliers and lavish ballrooms, whispers of tension and class division moved silently through the corridors. Few could have imagined that within 4 days, the grandeur would collapse into terror, panic, and tragedy. This is the story of the Titanic, not the one you know from movies and myths, but the darker truths that history often leaves untold. Where are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Drop it in the comments. And if you enjoy dark history stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share your thoughts below. The Titanic set sail from Southampton on April 10, 1912, with a promise of safety and luxury, but from the very first moments, subtle warnings hinted at the fragility beneath the grandeur. Passengers marveled at the polished decks, the intricate woodwork, and the lavish dining halls, unaware that beneath the veneer of opulence, cracks of hubris and negligence had already begun to form. The ship carried more than its passengers. It carried the weight of society's confidence in technology and progress, a belief that human ingenuity could conquer the natural world. In the first days of the voyage, rumors of ice in the North Atlantic had reached the officers, yet their warnings were met with a mixture of caution and hubris, as if the ship's massive size and powerful engines could render nature powerless. Imagine walking those decks at night, the chill wind off the Atlantic biting at your coat, seeing the shadows of sailors moving silently as passengers enjoyed the illusion of invincibility, never knowing that danger approached faster than the ship could outrun it. Class divisions were starkly visible. First-class passengers enjoyed sumptuous meals and spacious cabins, while those in steerage navigated crowded, dimly lit corridors, their dreams of a new life in America wrapped in anxiety and hope. Even in such luxury, the undercurrents of tension and fear among the less privileged were palpable. Whispers of structural flaws, limited lifeboats, and emergency protocols whispered quietly among the crew, but were largely ignored by those above. On the night of April 14th, the ship's officers received multiple iceberg warnings from nearby vessels, yet they maintained speed, driven by schedules, pride, and perhaps disbelief. The temperature had dropped, and the sea was unusually calm, a deceptive tranquility masking the looming catastrophe. Passengers strolled the decks, unaware that the iceberg that would seal their fate was already in sight, a dark silhouette in the moonlight, reflecting a cold inevitability against the ship's towering hull. When the collision occurred, it was sudden, almost silent to many who were asleep or engaged in conversation. The sound was a grinding metal scream, followed by a subtle shudder that would grow into chaos in the hours to come. Crew members immediately began assessing the damage, discovering that multiple watertight compartments had been breached, yet the full scope of the disaster was not immediately apparent. First-class passengers were initially reassured that the ship could withstand the damage, a testament to both the shipbuilder's pride and the officers' desire to maintain calm. But the breach could not be contained. Water poured into the lower decks, and the Titanic's fate began its irreversible descent. Panic, confusion, and disbelief spread. Some passengers refused to believe the danger, insisting on remaining in their cabins or continuing their dinner. Others clutched children, partners, or elderly relatives, trying to make sense of the unfolding nightmare. The crew, though trained, were unprepared for the scale of chaos. Lifeboat drills had been minimal, and the vessel carried far fewer lifeboats than needed to accommodate all passengers. Imagine standing on the deck, watching women and children being loaded into half-empty boats, while men scrambled desperately, the icy water beginning to lap the lower decks. Orders were shouted over the wind, voices strained with urgency and fear, yet miscommunication and human error turned the evacuation into a nightmare of its own. First-class passengers had a significant advantage, with officers and stewards guiding them to accessible lifeboats, while enraged passengers struggled to reach the crowded deck through labyrinthine stairwells and locked gates. In those moments, social hierarchy dictated life and death as the wealthy ascended into safety while many below decks were trapped or denied timely passage. The lifeboats, many launched partially filled due to confusion and panic, became both a lifeline and a haunting symbol of mismanagement. Women screamed for children, men tried to shield loved ones, and some passengers refused to leave without those they could not locate. As the night deepened, the Titanic's bow dipped lower into the icy Atlantic, water rushing in with increasing speed, soaking the decks and washing away the false calm that had reigned mere hours before. Imagine the air thick with cold spray, voices echoing against metal walls, the distant wails of those trapped in corridors below decks merging with the rhythmic crash of water against steel. Crew members risked their lives, lowering lifeboats manually, some plunging into the sea to rescue swimmers or attempt to recover those who had fallen. The magnitude of human terror was unimaginable, as each moment could mean survival or death. Panic was compounded by disbelief. Many refused to jump into the freezing water, knowing hypothermia would claim them in minutes. Yet some took the desperate leap, clinging to debris, life belts, or the hope that help would arrive. The ship's musicians famously continued to play, a haunting counterpoint to the screams and chaos, their dedication providing fleeting calm amidst utter horror. Below deck, steerage passengers struggled with locked gates, narrow passageways and language barriers, some realizing too late that their path to safety was blocked, their hope extinguished by circumstance and neglect. Officers attempted to maintain order, but the Titanic's massive size and complexity rendered coordinated action nearly impossible. As the ship's lights began to fail, the night transformed into near-total darkness, amplifying fear and disorientation. On the deck, lifeboats lowered into the frigid waters, some capsizing under panic or poor handling, others drifting with the desperate, huddled passengers. The air was filled with desperate calls, prayers, and the sobs of those witnessing friends, family, and strangers disappear beneath the waves. In the cold, black Atlantic, survival was a tenuous grasp. The frigid temperatures ensured that even the strongest swimmers could last only minutes. The Titanic's stern rose dramatically, creating a terrifying angle before it too succumbed to the water, breaking apart in the process. Those left in the water clung to floating debris, desperately searching for safety, while the screams of the doomed mingled with the roar of the ship's collapse. It is impossible to convey fully the terror, the utter helplessness, and the heartbreaking decisions made in those hours. Social class, luck, and timing dictated who lived and who perished. Immigrants in steerage often had the shortest chance of survival, while wealthy passengers in first-class cabins had access to lifeboats and guidance. Yet even among the upper classes, death was random. Some families were separated, some individuals refused rescue to help others, and some were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. As dawn approached, the icy waters were littered with lifeboats and bodies, the air filled with a surreal silence broken only by the occasional cries and the wailing whistle of the ship's remnants. The Carpathia arrived hours later, rescuing the survivors, but the scale of the disaster was staggering. Over 1,500 people had perished, leaving families devastated and society shocked. Investigations would later reveal structural flaws, ignored safety protocols, and human error that contributed to the tragedy. Imagine historians poring over testimony, examining lifeboat allocation, and scrutinizing the shipbuilders' decisions, uncovering layers of neglect and overconfidence that transformed a technological marvel into a tomb. The Titanic disaster became a symbol of hubris, class division, and the deadly consequences of underestimating nature. Stories emerged of courage and selflessness, passengers giving up seats in lifeboats, crew members guiding others to safety, strangers helping strangers, but they existed alongside haunting tales of panic, selfishness, and missed opportunity. Even decades later, the Titanic's sinking serves as a lesson in the limits of human pride, the perils of ignoring warning signs, and the vulnerability of life in the face of unstoppable natural forces. The legacy of Titanic is not only the names and numbers, but the deeper human truths it revealed: fear, sacrifice, social inequity, and the eternal tension between ambition and reality. Survivors carried the memory of that night for the rest of their lives, recounting the horror, heroism, and heartbreak that no one could ever forget. And as we remember the Titanic, we are forced to ask ourselves, could such a tragedy happen again, in a different form, if we ignore warning signs, hubris, and the value of human life above pride and technology? The social hierarchy dictated survival to an alarming degree. First-class passengers had proximity and guidance, while many steerage passengers were trapped or delayed by obstacles beyond their control. As the night progressed, the Titanic's bow sank deeper, water flooding corridors, ceilings collapsing, and the cold biting at exposed skin. The ship's stern rose dramatically before breaking apart entirely, sending final waves of panic into the sea. Imagine the chaos of lifeboats launching into darkness, passengers clinging to ropes, debris floating in the icy waters, the air filled with desperate cries, and the unyielding roar of the Atlantic claiming the ship and its victims. The Carpathia arrived hours later, rescuing the fortunate, but over 1,500 souls had perished, leaving families shattered and a world stunned. Investigations revealed structural flaws, ignored warnings, and overconfidence in human engineering, a combination that magnified natural hazards into a human catastrophe. Survivor testimonies painted vivid pictures of courage, fear, confusion, and heartbreak. Women giving up lifeboats for strangers, parents protecting children, and strangers extending helping hands amid chaos. The disaster exposed social inequities, showing how wealth and status could determine life or death. It also highlighted humanity's vulnerability to nature, no matter how advanced technology seemed. Stories of heroism emerged alongside haunting accounts of missed chances and mistakes, from crew mismanagement to passengers' tragic indecision. The ship's breakup in the dark Atlantic became symbolic, a testament to human pride, the limits of technology, and the devastating power of nature. Historians note that even in such extreme disaster, glimpses of humanity persisted. Acts of kindness, bravery, and selflessness stood against a backdrop of panic and terror. The Titanic's sinking also became a lesson in systemic failure. Safety regulates. Irons were insufficient, communication among crew and officers faltered, and the obsession with speed and prestige compromised basic survival measures. Modern parallels emerge in stories of technological overconfidence and corporate negligence, showing that lessons of the Titanic are not just historical, but profoundly contemporary. Researchers and authors continue to dissect the event, uncovering hidden failures, personal stories of survival and loss, and the broader social context of Edwardian England. Families of immigrants, industrialists, crew, and aristocrats all endured trauma that rippled across generations. Each survivor carried indelible memories, witnessing the interplay of social privilege, human error, and nature's indifference. The icy waters swallowed dreams, hopes, and lives, leaving the world to ponder the fragile line between confidence and catastrophe. Visualizing the wreck today, nearly 70 years later, reveals a haunting landscape of debris, frozen in time, echoing the stories of desperation, courage, and mortality. Titanic's story continues to captivate because it combines human ambition, tragic error, social inequality, and the unforgiving force of the natural world. It warns of complacency, hubris, and the consequences of ignoring warning signs, all while highlighting timeless acts of bravery and compassion. From the opulent first-class dining rooms to the crowded steerage corridors, from the lifeboats to the icy waters below, the Titanic embodies both human pride and human vulnerability, a duality that continues to resonate in storytelling, education, and cultural memory. The disaster reminds us that even our greatest achievements can be undone by oversight, arrogance, or nature's indifference, and that survival is often a mix of courage, luck, and social positioning. From the initial departure to the final breakup, from heroism to despair, the Titanic's tale is a continuous narrative of human endeavor confronted by mortality, a story as haunting today as it was in 1912. As the sun rose over the North Atlantic the morning after the Titanic's tragic sinking, a grim silence settled over the waters, broken only by the cries of survivors in lifeboats and the distant whistle of the rescue ship Carpathia. The enormity of what had occurred began to sink in. Over 1,500 lives lost in a single night, families torn apart, dreams shattered, and a world left questioning the limits of human pride and technological certainty. The Titanic was more than a ship. It was a testament to both the brilliance and the folly of humankind, a symbol of ambition, luxury, and overconfidence that collided violently with nature's unyielding force. Its story is a reminder that no matter how grand our creations or how secure we feel in our perceived control, life can change in an instant, and that survival often hinges on courage, quick thinking, and even the smallest acts of selflessness. As we reflect on the tragedy, we also remember the heroes, the musicians who played on, the crew who guided passengers, and the strangers who offered their lives for others, and we are reminded that humanity can shine even in the darkest hours. If you found this story compelling, subscribe to the channel, press the bell icon to never miss an episode, like the video, and share your thoughts in the comments about which type of dark history stories you want to see next. Where are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Let us know in the comments below.